Hey guys, this is Nia and today I will be sharing with you 4 easy watercolor bookmarks using fun watercolor techniques. I recently published my Skillshare class on these techniques, and these bookmarks are some examples of what you can make using one or more of those techniques combined. For this, I will be using the same color that I used in the class and also the same color palette. I'll be using Pentel for this, but you can also use other brands as well if you want to try these out yourselves. So here are the colors: Prussian blue, cobalt blue, ultramarine, sky blue, purple, red purple, lemon yellow, and vermilion. So for the size, the final bookmarks are going to be 15 centimeters by 5 centimeters. Don't forget to also count the space at the top and bottom, and also the space in between each bookmark for the masking tape. It would be ideal to have extra space at the top and bottom for me here, but that's just the paper size that I already have. So I'm just going to work with it, but it is better to mask it off since if you paint and you leave it like this, the paint might go behind the paper. I might just chop off a little bit off the top and bottom later on. So for the first one, I want to create a pattern with some masking fluid. As usual, I'm applying the masking fluid with an old brush. I'm making like a fish scale pattern. It's just basically like a half circle and then it's just repeated. And on the line on top, you want to align it differently, like how you would align bricks. The key here is to get the height of the half circles correct. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you notice one is a bit short, make sure to elongate the height of the one on top of it, and so on. I also want to do some masking techniques on the third one, but because this one is quite thick, I'm just going to use my masking tape, and then I'm going to create some thinner lines with the masking fluid. So here I'm just going to add more lines, and I'm going to do random crisscross here and there and try to make the lines as straight as possible. Emphasis on the try because I know my first line was very wonky. Anyway, while I wait for the masking fluid to dry, I'm going to go to the second panel and start painting some circles using a mixture of sky blue and lemon yellow. I'm going to mix different ratios of the two colors, so I have several tones. And I'm going to paint large circles slightly for the time being. Then after I've placed down the larger ones, I'm going to go back with a thicker consistency paint of the same mixture using those two colors and paint smaller circles after the first layer is completely dry, because if not, the layer on top will start bleeding onto the layer before. I'm also going to do some circular outlines to make the composition feel a bit lighter. At a certain point, I also want to introduce different colors, so I'm adding some ultramarine blue circles and also some reddish pink color by mixing red, purple, vermilion, and white. And since I'm going to use those two colors as accents, I'm going to paint them in a slightly thicker consistency. After that, I'm going to take a step back and have a look if there are any spaces that I find need to be balanced out. And then I go back in with some lime green colors from the first mixture. If you decide to do this yourself, it will most probably be different in terms of the placing and composition, so just adjust according to what you see fit. Since the masking fluid is now dry, I'm going to go back to the first bookmark again, and for this I'm going to do a gradient wash by using cobalt blue at the top, then moving on to sky blue, and then after that I'm going to keep adding a touch of lemon yellow color until it reaches the bottom. The bottom of my bookmark is a really light lime green color, but it's really up to you if you want more of a bluish aqua color or even pure lemon yellow at the bottom. I'm going to add another layer to this afterwards, but meanwhile I'm just going to wait for that to dry, so I'm going to move along to the third bookmark. For the third bookmark, I'm going to use alcohol with the droppers, so before you begin painting this one, it's a good idea to get that ready. For this bookmark, I'm going to be combining several different colors, and that's all of the blues that I have on my palette, plus purple and the red purple for the moment. Something like a galaxy color combination, but of course you can choose your own color combination too. While the paint is still wet, I then start taking the alcohol and put small drops in it. When the paint starts to dry, you won't really get any effects because the alcohol reacts to the water in the paint, not the paint itself. So if your surface is getting dry, you can either reactivate it or paint a new layer. For the fourth one, I'm going to use a dropper to pick up some paint and place it down on paper. If you're using the same dropper as the alcohol, make sure you clean it first so the paint still reacts as watercolor. I then turn the page upside down so the drops are closer to me and start blowing the paint with a straw. I realized afterwards that I could have just placed the droplets at the bottom of the page, so I don't have to flip the whole thing, but it was too late then. So anyway, getting back to the painting, I used basically the same colors as the previous one. I started with Prussian blue and then added some purple and some red purple and also some sky blue and ultramarine. Again, you can pick your own color combination for this. This is a really fun technique as you won't know what you'll get. It's quite unpredictable how many streaks you'll get from blowing the paint, but the more you blow, and if you also do it from different directions, the more streaks you'll get. I also try to always aim at puddles of the paint so the paint can move easier. It's up to you how full you want this page to be or this bookmark to be, but I'm going to make the top more full than the bottom, so I'm going to add in more paint just with my brush to get rid of some white space at the bottom here, which will be at the top of the bookmark. The streaks here didn't travel as far as I wanted to, so I'm going to add more droplets around the middle part and just see how it goes. I'm not going to do too much because I think this already looks quite full in terms of the streakiness, so I'm going to add more elements later on. So like the previous one, I'm also going to add alcohol to this to add some extra texture. Then I'm also going to add some pink dots in different sizes around the bottom of the splatter. I want this to have more of a splatter feel, so I'm going to take some sky blue and start tapping my brushes together and create some splatter dots. I also ended up adding a touch of lime green for little accents later on, and I'm just going to keep working on this until I'm quite satisfied with the overall composition and weight of the bookmark. So I'm going to wait for the fourth bookmark to dry now and go back to my first bookmark. Since the paint is completely dry now, it's looking a little washed out, so I'm going to add another layer by using the same colors, which is a range of mixture between lemon yellow and sky blue, but this time I'm going to apply it in a thicker consistency, and I'm going to paint a few of the scales quite randomly, but I want to leave some lighter ones too. I feel like I'm quite satisfied with the colors of the first bookmark, so I'm going to go back to the second one now, and for this I'm going to mix watercolor, water, and soap. Then I'm going to blow bubbles with a straw and mix it until I get smaller bubbles that I can pick up with a straw, and then I'm going to place some of them on the second bookmark as extra texture. I'm just going to randomly place them down. I'm not going to go overboard with this, I'm just going to put a few, and when I'm done putting the bubbles, I'm just going to leave it there till it dries, and the bubbles will just naturally pop by themselves. I'm going to go back to the third one again since it's now dry, I'm going to splatter some white gouache with a small toothbrush just so it has tiny specks of white. Then I'm going to add more colors to it, such as pink and a bit of lime green in a thin consistency, and I'm also going to exaggerate some of the alcohol texture by adding darker colors in the circle and outside of the circular texture. Once I'm done placing down the colors, I'm going to splatter some white again since I've covered some of them, and since the surface is still wet and some parts is going to soften the colors in the wet areas. Then I'm also going to do the same thing for the fourth bookmark. I'm going to go back to the first bookmark again since it's now dry. I think the pattern is looking a bit plain, so I decided to add tinier scales inside of it using a smaller brush and white gouache. Now I think I'm almost done, so I'm going to look at everything again, then I'm going to do final touch-ups in places that I think needs a bit more balance. Obviously, if you do this yourself, you don't have to do as many layers as this. Just keep building things up according to your own taste and preference. If you like softer colors, then you don't have to add additional layers of thicker consistency paint. Once I'm done with the painting, then I'm just going to take off the masking fluid and also the masking tape. Then I'm going to cut them out and it's complete. For those of you who are interested in the techniques that I covered here, I'd like to announce that I recently published a Skillshare class on this where I cover several different techniques individually, and I also share my experiments in a bit more detail. Some of them I've shared here, like the soap and alcohol. I also tried using different types of salts and even MSG to see the reactions it would create with the watercolor and so on. This class is very simple and easy, and it's beginner friendly, so if this is something that would interest you, please check it out. I'll leave a link to my classes at the description box below, and if you're not a member yet, you can have 2 months free membership by using the link that I provide. Anyway, getting back to the bookmarks, I'm almost done with unmasking everything. If some of the masking tape ended up ripping some of your paper, don't worry about it because you can just cut it off. Just make sure you're taking off the masking tape very slowly so when you realize there's a rip, you can avoid ripping any parts of the painting itself. After you're done unmasking, go ahead and cut the bookmarks individually. I'm using this paper cutter to make the process faster, but of course you can also use a Stanley knife or a blade to cut them. Going back to the fourth bookmark, as you can see, some of the paint seeped through the masking tape, so I'm just going to take a thick white gouache paint and cover those parts to clean them up a bit, and that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed these DIY bookmarks and learned something new from watching this video. If any of you decide to give this a go, please tag me on Instagram so I can take a look at your creations. As usual, I'll leave all the details in the description box. Thank you for watching till the end, and I'll see you at the next video. Bye!